Hi and welcome to this special episode of Page One, where we've got a returning guest who's actually been on the podcast twice, I think, in the past, actually. And she's here to talk about her latest book and also to tell us 5 books that have influenced her writing in general and also this latest book. And she's also trying to put me off this speaking while I'm doing this to the camera, but I think I've got through it quite well.
Oh, you got impressed, Bogle.
So I will now bring on Sarah Pinborough and of course Tarek as well. Less exciting. Welcome back.
I don't know what you're talking about. Thank you for having me again. I'm never coming back again after that, though, am I?
Yeah, you burned all your bridges this time. Mark was absolutely furious.
So I mean, when we first got you on, we were a baby podcast. I think it was I can't remember what episode it was, but it was certainly within the first 50 episodes. And we were talking about Behind Her Eyes and things like that.
That is a while back, is it?
Yeah. Back then.
It was pre-COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
definitely
pre-COVID.
Before COVID, yeah.
It was pre-COVID.
Must have been
so I mean,
2019 or so.
I suppose, how's the writing been in the past 5 years?
How's it going? What have you been up to?
I've got older, I've got fatter, I've got more jaded, more cynical, and I think all that is reflected in my body of work.
Excellent.
As this career goes, it's had its highs, it's had its lows, but in general, I can't complain, I think, because what was that, Behind Her Eyes? So since then, I've had, can't even think, Cross the Heart, Dead to Her,
Insomnia,
and now We Live Here Now.
Yeah.
So a bit slacking. And a couple of the fairy tale novellas as well.
Yes.
Last year.
And you've had...
I wrote a whole TV series.
Just to say, of course, you've also had the TV side of things as well, because you've had Behind Her Eyes made into a TV show and Insomnia. And am I right in saying, I think, for Behind Your Eyes, you took a little bit of a step back, but Insomnia, you had quite a big role in writing.
I wrote all of it, every episode, and exec produced it, and not just in the way that writers say they exec produce something.
Yeah,
I actually
did some
did
proper
exec
producing.
produce it. It was such a learning curve. It was like having a book edit again. Like once I got the flow of it, you're like, no, move this to there, cut that, cut this, don't need that scene. Things that I'd really fought for at the script stage. Like I found myself going, actually, I don't think that works. Let's take that out.
Oh, that's interesting. So you properly put on an editor hat almost, and
and then there's the sound cues, and the ADR and the lighting and the everything. It's quite a whole.
Wait, were you just making this TV show yourself?
There were days that I wished that was the case. No, it was massive learning curve, but it was great. Yeah.
I mean, imagine a lot of stuff you've learned from that then will be, invaluable going forward if you want to continue to be involved in the TV side of things.
Oh, for sure.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, at my book launch the other week, I think I sent you invites. I don't think I got responses, but you were in Glasgow or somewhere ridiculous.
I definitely thought about saying no.
I mean,
my invite must have got lost in the spam folder.
Oh,
or something.
I'm just so rubbish. I invite all over the place that I can't keep track. Yes, we had a reunion of one of the execs came, and the exec Charlotte, that was the sort of. No, she wasn't exec. The main producer on the floor, she came. We're working on Cross Her Heart with a company called Rough Cut, and the director came, and we all just had this great catch up and was saying it was such a learning curve. And the guy, so many lessons learned. And the guy who runs Left Bank, Andy Harries, is a really mercurial character. I mean, I would never be afraid of a book edit again.
Okay, right. Okay.
I mean, I love Andy, and when he's on form, he's really on form, and we got on really well. But when the tempers are flying.
Really?
Oh my gosh, there are legendary stories about writers and Andy and
so so more of a thicker skin on TV than in books.
My god, yeah, people will scream at you without even thinking about it, whereas a book edit is I really like what you've done. I've got some suggested changes. Really amazing work, though. And if maybe you could look at these and, I don't know, get them back to me in like 6 weeks. Like in TV, it's like, what the fuck is this? This is too short. This is too long. What is this character even doing? We have this actor for this character. What is he doing in this? And you're like, all right, easy, Tiger. Let's sit down. Have a chat. So yeah, but it's always because everyone is so passionate about it, and also there is so much money involved and so many people with a say and whatever. But I would work with all those people again. So
Nice.
It was a really great experience. Yeah.
And is it something that you would want to do more of again then?
Oh, for sure. I mean, at the moment we've got I've just done the pilot episode of 13 Minutes for Carnival, which we're out and about with. Rough Cut, we're doing Cross Our Heart. Obviously, haven't got broadcaster yet, but we're very early stages on that. Death House movie is still tootling along. The pilot for A Matter of Blood I did for another company that is now tootling along, but TV is tough. Everything is very tough at the moment. So it's getting that balancing act of, like I had 3 years between books because of the TV show, really. So it's also hard if a publisher is trying to build you a little bit and then you're like, oh, I'm just going off to do this. So it is hard. So I'm trying to, while things are just in that kind of quiet zone, I'm trying to, I've got to finish this book. In 2 weeks' time, it's not going to happen. And then I'd like to try and get at least part way into another one before, if TV takes off. But I've always got I've got a couple of other, I'm always having meetings. I've got a great team, as they say. So I had a meeting with a really great woman at Netflix USA, and I need to write a movie for her and stuff. So it's all good.
And all that stuff, even if none of it ever gets made, you're still getting paid to write it, right? So you're still able to make a living off the work, even if none of it actually goes in.
I mean, I get paid more for a pilot episode of TV in the UK than I definitely get paid more for a pilot than I got paid for Behind Her Eyes.
Really?
Right, okay.
I mean, not in the long run.
But in terms of advance or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So in America, for a pilot, you get paid. So let's say for a pilot, I mean, I'm not talking about top level, but if I think you probably get you could get $150,000 if your agent works hard for a pilot.
Wow.
That's nuts, yeah.
Yeah. And then you get but then when you get in the room, you're probably only going to get $25,000 for the rest of the episodes.
Right, okay.
And then you do get producer fees, da. But when we worked out, so in the UK, I get paid, my average fee is 36 for a pilot.
Okay.
But then, so I'd write 6 episodes. But then when they start filming, they have to pay me all of that again. So it works out $72,000 an episode.
Right, okay.
Plus your producer fee, plus your and then of course you've got the book payment as well.
I was going to say, because I remember you said this at one point a while ago about, for writers looking to make a career, one of the best things they can do in terms of making money off it is to make money off the same thing over and over again. So you write the book, you make money off the book, and then you sell the book, and then you write the TV show and you produce it. And so it's the same idea, the same work idea, etc. But you're just selling it again.
I was much more naive then, because obviously when you're writing Insomnia, a lot changes because you've got 6 hours to fill with one book. So, but I mean, it's not money to be sniffed at.
No.
So
definitely.
Compared with books, unless you're I don't know, Chris Whitaker or whatever, where you had this huge success, and that's I expect. I mean, I don't know his, but it's got to be retirement money.
He's been everywhere.
I mean, it's amazing to see, isn't it?
All the colours of the dark, just huge.
Yeah, and off the back of We Begin at the End, and he's built that career really well, and obviously a great writer. But if you've not got that level, then you do want to try and maximize what you can do. But and I think it's a good time to get options. It's not such a great time to get things made.
Yeah.
Okay.
TV's not got any money at the moment. It's all in free fall.
And do you prefer when you're doing that, working for TV, do you prefer working on your own stuff, or do you prefer like something new, like for this Netflix thing? Is that a fresh project?
It's nice to do new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the joy of doing stuff that you've already done
Is you've already done it.
if you've got the basics there,
Yeah,
you're going to change it. And also, if it gets made, you get paid.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I suppose it's also helping the sales of your book, except it's all...
Yeah, I mean, it does and it doesn't. I don't think it really had an impact on Insomnia, but that was because it was Paramount. And while we were like a huge show for Paramount UK is small.
Yeah.
So until that show works its way through Channel 5 and then Netflix or whatever, when it finally gets to Netflix, then it might have an impact on the book.
Yeah, because I have seen Paramount stuff going to Netflix recently.
Oh, Behind Your Eyes, definitely. I reckon Behind Your Eyes probably, I don't know, the TV probably sold me an extra 100,000 books. I don't know.
Oh, wow. Okay, good. Brilliant. Okay.
It's interesting. We had Lee Child on, and he said that the movies with Tom Cruise, which obviously weren't as big a thing, but those had a huge impact on his book sales.
Because it was the first one as well.
I suppose that's probably true. And the TV show hasn't had like a significant impact on.
I guess like a Tom Cruise movie, even if it's not as accurate as the TV show, maybe it's more of a cultural thing that punches through to people, isn't it, I suppose? My
story about the Lee Child, Tom Cruise, Jack Reacher movie is that I found myself at the London premiere of that.
Oh, nice.
Yes. And I was on the red carpet with my mate, and suddenly everyone was going mad around me. And I was like, wow, what's going on?
I've finally made it.
I've made it. No one knows who I am. They've mistaken me for someone important. And I looked kind of both ways, and then I looked down slightly, and Tom Cruise was next to me.
No, you're next to you?
Yeah. And then when we went in, they had and this was perhaps problematic in some ways, but they had the after party before, because Tom Cruise spends so long outside with the fans. So before they showed the film, there was a 2-hour party.
Oh, right. No, while he's outside signing stuff?
While he's outside signing stuff. And so everyone's getting trashed inside. And I remember Bill Nighy coming over and saying, oh, that's a very beautiful dress. And I was like, thank you very much. And my friend dragged me away and said, you're not shagging Bill Nighy. And I was like, why am I not?
Spoil sport. Exactly.
But then, of course, we were all quite tipsy. So by the time we went in to watch the film, we were way too tipsy. So we did about 4 minutes of it and went, should we go get a burger?
Well, you left the movie. Oh, Tom didn't see you.
Still not seen it. Still not seen that film.
I mean, you're not
I very much enjoyed the free wine. I mean, I think this is going back like 15 years now or something stupid.
I remember quite enjoying the first film. I remember turning off the second film about half an hour in. But it didn't work at all for me. But the first one, I remember, it's very much just a random action film. It's not really Jack Reacher.
It's a Tom Cruise film.
It's a Tom Cruise film, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh well, have you talked to Tom? Did you say hi to him?
No, I did not say hi to Tom. I just went, ooh, and then scurried away, I think, before his bouncers kind of pushed me to one side. No, I was way too eager to get inside to the cocktails and Bill Nighy.
Who wouldn't be?
We've tangented somewhat.
Yeah, we've tangented, but trying to steer it back onto the writing. Obviously...
How boring is writing.
I know. I'll be the boring one that will bring us back onto the path, and then you can go off it again. You said it was a 3-year gap, and then We Live Here Now is now out. And that gap was largely because of the TV work then, was it?
It's hard to remember, isn't it? You cast your mind back. Yes, it was. And also I just had this sort of series of unfortunate accidents, so I was a bit slower. I think I had a change of publisher in the middle. So this book was originally for a different publisher.
Right.
Oh, I see.
And I left that publisher, and it was still going to be with that other publisher. And then they were like, do you want it back? And I was like, yes, please. So we then took it to Orion. So
okay.
and then sold it to America. So it was waiting for all the edit notes to come through. Plus, it did need... I mean, I'm normally quite clean on my first draft because I'm a planner and, I kind of...
You're pro.
Well, have you met me? I just procrastinate in the writing, so I write it in rough, write it in neat, do more notes, da 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 da. But this one was a bit of a raggedy mess because the TV show was so all-consuming that it did not get the attention it deserved. And I think because when I started it, I was thinking I had to write a psych thriller, and then it was kind of pulling in two different directions. So in the edit, I stripped out a whole murder, stripped out loads of stuff, and reframed it as a gothic thriller.
Okay.
And so it took a lot more editing, and then we were actually ready really early because the Americans wanted to do, well, they have done these beautiful sprayed edges.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how it's in England. So we were like, so how many spreads are you doing? You know, in England, there'd be like 500. I mean, like, I'd love 500 spreads in England.
Yeah.
And in America, we went, how many spreads are you doing? They went, 40,000. Like,
Jesus. Amazing.
Else, you know? I mean, they're going to be on a bonfire by Christmas.
Suckers.
But to get them printed in time, because they were 20th of May, their publication date, we had to be ready nearly a year before. Like, we had to be ready by kind of October, because they send them to Europe to be done.
Oh, right. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think
it's a
it
massive
takes
process.
A lot longer.
Right.
They send them to Europe to spray the edges to then take them back to America.
To do the stenciling.
No one does better sprayed edges in Europe. It's an old man in a Italian village somewhere.
Now. The
like one person.
That will be. Yeah. What page by page just paints that. Yeah, turns a page, paints it.
Just edges. Just
takes them a year.
But you know the thing with spreads, like I just looked and I was like, oh, pretty red branches. And then someone in America said, I love the way they've got the raven on each bit of spread. And I was like, do they? I was like, oh yeah.
Upside down. So this is we're talking about We Live Here Now, which is your latest book. So why didn't you tell? We've talked about it, around it. Why didn't you tell us what the book is about?
No.
Thanks for coming on. See you later.
It's late in the day for this, isn't it? It's very warm down south. It is about a couple called Emily and Freddie, who moved from London to a house in Dartmoor after Emily has an awful accident and has sepsis and nearly dies. They sell their London flat. They move to this old house called Larkin Lodge in Dartmoor. And Emily spends a lot of time there on her own, and she starts to think it's haunted. And she starts to hear things in the upstairs floor that she can't reach because she's been injured and she can't make it up the stairs. So to start with, she just hears things, and then she finally gets up there, figures it's haunted, but can find no evidence of a murder. So it's like a couple with secrets in a house with secrets. It doesn't end well for anybody, or at least it doesn't proceed well for anybody.
Nice.
And the house has its own agenda, really.
And there's definitely like a bit of a resurgence of that sort of gothic horror type stuff, isn't there, at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I did Behind Your Eyes, now I am not the first person to blend genres or anything like that, of course. But I think it was the first psych thriller one in that, because it was still quite new, this kind of Gone Girl thing. And I've noticed that, and CJ Tudor was doing her amazing kind of horror stuff, but she was a little bit more King Lane. And she's built a really good career. The Gathering, I really love.
Yeah.
I need to read that. I've heard, yeah.
Oh, it's so good. It's like you can see how she's kind of settled into her. You know, like you read someone's career. Like obviously mine started when you guys were like 2. But, you know, it's like, please God, never read those. But, you know, like she's always been good. But I really felt like with The Gathering, she'd really...
It really was like in the base way, it was like a King novel.
Yeah, very much so. That. But yeah, there definitely has been, and I'm not sure if it's. I mean, there's a mercenary part of me that thinks people are like, oh, we need to do something a bit extra to, you know, get attention. Horror's having a bit of resurgence, always does in bad times, you know. But I also wonder if there's an element of, in the pandemic, people sort of taking stock of their careers and their lives and what they're writing, and are they really enjoying what they're writing, or would they like to try something else, or so. And I wonder if a lot of the books we're seeing now came out of that thought process of people being. I certainly was a bit like, do I want to write another husband? I mean, this is a husband-wife book, but it's not,
it's not straightforward drama. So that's interesting, because I mean, we've said before on the show about how horror's kind of having a bit of a moment the last few years, and I hadn't actually thought. I assumed it was just kind of one of these cyclical things that comes out here. But do you think it's related more to during bad times and Trump,
for sure? I
cetera,
think
that
it's
people like reading horror stuff in those kind of times,
and I think it's exactly why fantasy is doing so well.
Okay.
We've got a different generation of fantasy readers. So, I mean, I know a lot of people in the crime circle. Well, maybe not actually. I might be being a bit poo-pooey, but I've heard people be a bit dismissive of romantasy. Yeah. Maybe I'm thinking of the fantasy world actually, because I cross both camps. But actually, I think it's great that there's fantasy for women out there, and a lot of men read romantasy as well. I think escapism is what people are after, and in both fantasy and horror, which are very interchangeable in a lot of ways, you have to suspend your disbelief straight out of the gate, because the shit ain't real, and it's you're not even pretending it's real. It's definitely a different world. And there is invariably a resolution at the end where the bad shit is dealt with, especially horror. It's and supernatural horror. It stops you worrying about the real life horrors. Yeah. And and it is, horror is very entertaining. Yeah. There is, obviously it can be meaningful horror, but it could, it can also be your kind of Salem's Lot fun.
Yeah. And you said as well that a couple of your fantasy stories have also been sort of repackaged in this.
They're all getting a repackage.
They're all getting a repackage.
Yeah, all of them. Even the old horrors are coming back.
Right. Okay. Excellent.
Yeah, but because Orion and Gallant's own pretty much my whole backlist. So the only ones that won't will be Murder and Mayhem, but they're still out there, I think. The rest are sort of Orion and Gallant.
The dog-faced gods and stuff. They're all.
Yeah, so they're all getting a repackage, etc. But at the moment, it's also that thing of when, because I'm like, oh, don't do it here and don't do it there, and so it's kind of like the when of it.
Yeah.
Is because they at first were like, we'll do these in October and this and that, and I'm like, oh, slow down, I want to focus on the paperback, or I'm very much about current publishing.
Yeah.
I've taken their money for the backlist reprints. I don't need to see them.
I remember chatting to Stephen Graham Jones, and he was saying similar, but in fact he was writing books so quick. They were putting books out multiple times a year, and then he got a new agent, and the agent was like, you need to slow down because you're totally cannibalizing stuff. Yeah,
I had 5 books out in 1 year once.
Wow.
I had 2 publishers. So I had the 3 fairy tales, which were admittedly only 40,000 words, but there were 3 of them. They came out at different times. I had the Death House and I had Mayhem. All very different books. All very,
Does it work better if there are different audiences, as opposed to they're all being
I just
similar?
don't think you want that many books hitting the market at the same time, and I see, especially sometimes small press authors, see a couple on social media. I mean, I think it's different if you self-publish.
I think self-publish.
Yes.
I've got friends who self-publish crime novels or whatever, and they are knocking out shorter, maybe 55,000 word novels, but they're doing
want the content
4 a year. They want that content. But if you're doing small press publishing or trad publishing or whatever, you don't want to book out every 3 months. Who's going to buy it?
Yeah.
There's not enough money for, I mean, I don't want to be spending 20 quid in a hardback every 3 months for, even for John Connolly or even you, Tarek.
No, I get it. I mean, the hardback.
You can pick his books up in the bargain bin.
I'm waiting for the 99p Kindle deal. That's what I wait for. Genuinely, I mean, the hardback. The whole thing about hardbacks is I don't know anyone that really buys hardbacks. Apart from as a gift,
I mean, there's such unless you get a subscription box.
Oh yeah, sure. But very very rarely do I go out to buy a new book and I buy a hardback for 20 quid.
Especially now that Asda £4.50 hardback or whatever is done.
Yeah.
It used to be you could go into Tesco or Asda or whatever and get a hardback for £5.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know, in which case I would buy a hardback,
but for
but
20
not
quid,
20 quid, not
no.
even 18 quid.
They're also not nice. They're nice on the shelf, but they're not as nice to pick. They're pain to hold, and they're bigger, and they're clump. You know, it's just. I do. We've chatted before about this.
A good Kindle deal, but I think hardback is a bit like, "Ooh, look, we like this book."
Yeah. Then I remember you said about Insomnia when Insomnia came out in hardback, and about 2-3 weeks later, you had the ebook version for 99p. I mean, stuff like that must also just kill the hardback sales. People know I'll wait for the daily deal.
So yeah, but these are the things in publishing that you cannot control, aren't they? These things are so out of your remit that you'd go mad if you start thinking, you know, like if you start thinking about everything that can go wrong with the book, because if you're in the career long enough, everything will go wrong at some point. You know, even like Chris flying high now will have had his shit moments.
Oh,
as publishing and may well have some to come, not maybe of the level like, but you know, when you're that high, the fear has got to be
absolutely.
You know, big, hasn't it?
Fingers crossed.
Yes, fingers crossed. No, I love Chris. I will forgive anyone who's witty. Do you know, he could be a truly odious person, but he's witty, so it's fine. I mean, he's not an odious person, but you know, like I think any level, there are different worries, aren't there? We all have the same kind of neediness of like, oh my God, what if it fails? You know, but yes, so the long and short of it is hardbacks these days are just lap of the gods, aren't they? And lap of the subscription boxes.
Which does make you wonder why there's such, although, you know, you do need a gap between a hardback and a paperback, but if hardbacks aren't selling anyway,
a year is a long time.
Sometimes a year between both seems a very long time.
I think it's about 9 months normally, isn't it now?
Right.
Okay.
It's about 9 months. I think is the general gist I get from it. But yeah, and sometimes they bring them out much quicker, don't they? Like I don't know. I guess the hardback serves a function, but I'm not overly sure that it's does anybody that much good these
to
days.
me, the hardbacks these days are all about the boxes, and especially sort of fantasy with the spreads
and the pictures and the bloggers.
You get your Illumicrate box with your
but we've still got the Goldsboro box. You know, like we all look at and cry over. Please, thank me.
Right. Well, the other reason obviously we had you on the podcast today was so you could talk about your top 5 books.
That have influenced you.
I've influenced you. Or now, what we doing? Are we doing influence you or influence this book, or is it a mixture of both? What have you done
Well, I don't think it's possible to separate two things, is it?
Okay.
Because I don't think books in this instance, like if we were talking about mayhem, then I would say, oh yeah, Dan Simmons, The Terror influenced it because it was horror, not that was real. But this is not like, you know, this did not come out of watching someone else's or reading someone else's horror novel and thinking, well, I'm going to rob that blind. Because had I read one that I could have done, I would have done. So they're just a mashup of books that have influenced me over the years.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, why don't we start with your number 5 then?
My number 5 will be On Writing by Stephen King.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I think that's everybody's calming go-to, if you know what I mean. So it's a little bit of a resettle. Peter Pan. Oh, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say about that one. Do you still go back to On Writing?
I keep meaning to. I need to buy a new copy. I think I gave mine to somebody, but I keep seeing people. I think I've seen about 4 people mention it over the past month or so, and I thought I've not read that in ages. And it's the one that, I mean, I am a massive loather of writing advice. You know, like you see people on Twitter, as it once was, or Threads or whatever, giving writing advice. You think it's so subjective.
Yeah.
You know, like why you know, as if some proclaiming from above thing. Whereas I will take it from Stephen King. I will take. You know? Like,
but also it isn't just a book about writing. You know, it's a very readable book as well. It's not just writing.
The book where he talks a lot about his accident, right? His car accident and stuff, and quite open about
yeah.
Right, okay, what's your number 4 book then?
Peter Pan, because I got given that when I was 6. And I can still feel that paper. It was for my birthday when I was living in Syria, and I just loved it. It was just like a whole other world opened up. And I have now there's a French company, I can't remember what they're called, but they do bound copies of the original written manuscripts and illustrated.
Cool.
So I have that. Unfortunately, it's illegible. The writing was not good. So,
So it could be that, or it might not be.
Yeah, it might be something completely different. It could be Lolita for all I know.
It's the same book, the package every time. Just put
Yeah,
new cover
exactly. But yeah, I think it just. I mean, I had read obviously before, but it was the first book that I really kind of just opened up a world within a world, you know, which
I've not read it before.
Have you not read Peter Pan?
No, I've never. I would have seen the film when I was a kid,
Not
but
even
never.
when you were younger.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, yeah, I
Pretty
loved
sure
it.
not. I'm sure I had it at some point. I'm sure I remember seeing it in a book.
I mean,
but I've
I've
never
read
read
a Peter Pan. I can't say whether it was, because there'll have
G.M.
been like
Barrie.
kids' versions of
Yeah,
the story
yeah.
again. And
Yeah.
I suspect I might have read
Probably
that.
been quite a lot
Well,
of stuff
I'm
that's
going
been
back like
tweaked for
40
kids.
odd years. We didn't even have YA fiction back when I was a kid, so it's like was the right one. But very similarly is the next one, which was The Magician's Nephew.
Oh yeah, I loved that book as a kid.
Oh my God, I loved it. I loved it more than The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. I just loved the idea that you could pop this ring on your finger and just go to a whole other world. So I think it was both of those probably fostered in me a love of fantasy and things unreal. You know, like the idea that there could possibly be another world. You know, I mean, I suppose they did influence probably my children's fantasy trilogy, where there are two. There's Our London and London.
I think the Narnia series of books, I remember reading them when I was quite young as a kid, and it was the first time I remember you get to like book 5 or 6, whatever, and then it ties back to The Magician's Nephew, and you see how it all fits together. And I remember thinking it was amazing, this like massive world of books all locked together. It was, I think, the first time I'd kind of seen that kind of that close knit universe being built.
And you've got to wonder how much that was pre-planned, or whether when he got to the last book, he thought, "Oh, this could work."
Yeah.
Just like, oh, that would tie in nicely.
100%. No chance was that planned.
And so that, I think, would take us to your number 2.
I'm gonna go Every Dead Thing by John Connolly.
I've not read that.
Have you not? It's the first Charlie
John book. Yeah, they're on my list of books to read, which I've not read.
It really showed me. I think it was when I had finished writing. I was writing my last horror novel for America, and I really wanted to get out, and I really wanted to write this kind of dystopian Paradise Lost with a dodgy copper. And I was like, oh, but it's going to go a bit weird. And then I read Every Dead Thing, and it massively influenced Dog-Faced Gods, because I was like, oh, wow, you really can write a straight crime novel with some crazy shit in it. And that book in particular is, I mean, they're all good, but those sort of first 3 or 4, you know, when someone's building their world?
Yeah.
And everything feels rich. Whereas I don't care whose series it is, they go on, they presume knowledge, you know? So there is presumed knowledge.
Because he was on the podcast, John, and we spoke to him, and he said that, it was sort of after those first 4 or something, it starts to become more overtly.
They go quite bonkers in places,
And he says, like, obviously some people, he lost some of his audience as a result of that, because it was more leaning into that aspect of
overtly supernatural. But Every Dead Thing, definitely. Just as and I think, having read your Midnight King, Tarek, that you would really love Every Dead Thing.
Yeah, I think I would love it, because he's a great example of, from what I understand, of, as you say, mashing up those genres and showing that publishers will put stuff out that is not straight down the middle crime or supernatural.
Yeah,
You can merge
and
it.
just the flavors, because yours has all those little. That's what my favorite bits are, the little flavors.
Yeah,
of like,
I love
man.
putting little stuff there, and I
Yeah.
know publishers are like, oh, stay in your lane, whatever. But I think I do like having bits.
No,
of
you
it.
are in your lane. That is your lane.
Yeah, you're right. That is
That is
I've
your
created my
lane.
own lane. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
You're in the hard shoulder.
yeah.
People are driving.
I'm pulled over.
Past. People are driving
broken
past
down.
and ignoring you. But that's your lane.
I've got the hazards on. I've been here for hours.
That is such a publishing metaphor, isn't it? Sweeping down the fast lane, 2 minutes later, you're on the hard shoulder.
Yeah, you stay in your lane and don't move. Yeah. Right, so that gets us to your number one biggest book of all time. Oh, Rebecca. Nice.
Yeah, I think just in terms of, I mean, this list can change day to day.
Oh, I know. It's
impossible.
So I know.
But I think, and by Rebecca, I'm just putting Daphne du Maurier umbrella over that because the birds, her short stories, all these things. But I think for this book, Rebecca, I kind of think influences quite a lot of these domestic suspense.
Yeah, the gothicness of it all.
But, it is a haunted marriage story, and this is mine is a haunted marriage story. It's almost a haunted house story. That house in Rebecca Mandalay has its own personality, and Larkin Lodge is, a similar kind of thing. And I just love the atmosphere that she brings to all her work that is not overt, that I think is a skill, and there's just something intangible about it that I really like.
Nice. Yeah, it's a fantastic book.
And the twistiness of it, it's just great. Yeah.
Excellent.
Brilliant.
I was going to say Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House, and then I realised I would only be saying that because other people would expect it, and actually I didn't like that book.
Right, I read that recently after watching the amazing TV show. I loved the TV show, read the book afterwards, and I was like, I don't get it. It was nothing like the TV show, and I was like, I don't really understand.
Amazing book
ever. It didn't work for me at all.
I read something different here.
Yeah, everyone loves it though, yeah.
Yeah, Kevin Wignall said the one to read is We've Always Lived in the Castle.
Yeah, I've not read that either, but I've heard people say it. But I was kind of like, but you all said also the Haunting of Hill House.
I was like this, going, where is it going to get creepy? Because I remember having not read M.R. James books as stories because people kept telling me to, and being that kind of person, I was like, oh, I'm not going to. And then one year I thought, Sarah, you're nearly 40, stop being child. So I started to read these short stories, and I would read one a night, and I was like, well, that's not creepy. Then I'd turn my light out and be like, okay, that was creepy. Turn the light back on. Whereas did not have that at all.
No, I totally agree. You might be the first person I've talked to who didn't like that book.
We need to. Are you going to Harrogate?
Yes.
We need to get a beer or a wine or a Diet Coke and just bitch about that book.
Right, done. I'll be there. I'm going to read it again so I can really get angry on the train
really
down.
Angry about it again. And
what happens if you like it on a second reading, though?
No,
I know. Yeah.
I even watched the movie version because and that.
Oh, the old one with Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Yeah, the black and white one.
Oh no, that one.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's not Catherine. Is it good?
I think it might be.
Is it not Catherine Zeta-Jones' version of that film?
Oh no, I'm going way back before that.
Okay.
Yeah, this was a black and white
one
right, no, that's quite faithful to the book, and I was equally bored.
The TV show version is the Mike Flanagan show is
that's like not about that. That's just like when
it's very
Hill House. I mean, it's a science fiction show, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought that was incredible.
I loved it, and I actually loved the second series, which is controversial because
that's I'm afraid you're wrong. Second season was crap.
What did you think about his what's the island one?
Midnight Mass?
I love
it. Best thing he's done.
Absolutely.
Best thing. My favourite thing he's done. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
and
incredible.
I just love how he never mentioned vampires the whole way through.
Yeah, but it's incredible, and each episode ends and there's such an amazing cliffhanger. It's just the tension builds through that last half. This
although the first episode, you're like, what are these long conversations? What is this?
Yeah, very slow build, slow burning horror.
By the fifth episode, you're like, oh, they can do another big long conversation.
The bit in the boat, I don't want to spoil. Yeah, Marco, you'd love it.
No, I will definitely watch it. I've not seen it. I've seen what's this latest one?
Get off this podcast and get yourself.
I'll get watching it immediately. But what was the one he did? The pool one, the most recent one.
Usher.
Follow the
House of Usher.
House of Usher.
At all. That to me,
I quite liked it.
it felt like an American Horror Story series,
I
and
know
I
what you
liked
mean.
Yeah, it did feel a bit like
I know
that.
what you mean.
but it felt light compared to
Yes,
his.
I enjoyed it, but after we watched it straight after Midnight Mass, and it was
the weight
not a
between
patch on
the
it.
two
Yeah,
is different. It was American Horror Story. If someone had put me in front of that and not told me who'd made it, I would have thought it was an American Horror Story.
Oh yeah, I
it
can
was
kind of
quite
see
like
that
that,
actually.
yeah.
But no, Midnight Mass is phenomenal. Yeah,
Yeah,
I still like watch clips of that on YouTube sometimes for like just
Right,
the,
when you're
the
working
dialogue.
for it.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I'm just like sitting there for hours surfing YouTube, desperately trying to.
Thanks very much for coming on and chatting with us.
Thank you.
And
You're
we
going to have
might
to
invite you
edit this
back
down. It's going to be
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
It'll be
sorry,
about
man.
5 minutes long.
Usable content.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did, be sure to hit that thumbs up button and hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode like these ones down here.
And if you want to get in touch, you can do so by finding us on our social media platforms up here, or drop us a comment way down below there.
But otherwise, thanks for listening and join us for the next episode.
See you later.